With Mrs. Block for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to you, Minister, and to your departmental officials for joining us here today. After 9 years of this Liberal government, everything is broken, and you don't need to take my word for it. And I'm going to note that especially the procurement system within the Government of Canada. This is not a partisan statement, but a sentiment that is also shared by the Procurement Ombudsman in an article from Blacklock's reporter titled $25 billion Contract System Broken. The Procurement Ombuds said that the Canadian system is kind of near the bottom tier, and that's a quote. He went on to say that the irregularities, such as the sweetheart deals, are symptomatic of a broken system. And on Tuesday, when he appeared before committee, he gave us some examples, such as, and it was quite a list, such as We Charity, ArriveCan, McKinsey, Bait and Switch, and now Indigenous procurement. And as you said in your opening comments, Minister Duclos, Public Services and Procurement Canada works with all departments when it comes to procurement. So billions of dollars are being wasted and going to Liberal insiders who are basically fleecing taxpayers. How much money are taxpayers on the hook for outsourcing this year? Can you provide us with a number?
Well, I'm very glad that we're talking about procurement this morning, because procurement in the federal government represents approximately 400,000 contracts and other activities that, in fact, just dating back 2 years ago, have saved the lives of hundreds of thousands of Canadians because of the immense ability to save, the issues that we were obviously facing in hospitals and across Canada, vaccines and PPEs and other things, and pointing to the successes and the challenges, which you're correctly pointing to, that we're having with the national shipbuilding strategy, defense procurement.
Excuse me, Minister, I didn't point anything out about the national shipbuilding strategy. I asked how many contracts are being outsourced and how much are Canadians paying for those contracts to external consultants.
And I'll come back to that in a moment.
I would actually like you to just provide me with the answer now.
Well, we have, I'll come back to what I thought would be my first point. I'll come back to that second. But on external services procurement, as you will know, we have significantly reduced those dollars because we don't need those investments so much as we did need them during COVID, where the lives and the safety of Canadians were extremely important to the federal government.
By how much have you decreased the amount of funding being spent on external contractors?
So by approximately 15%, because that's the right thing to do.
15%. What is the dollar amount?
No translation may have a difficulty if we interact too often together. It will be difficult for French-speaking MPs and others listening in the room and outside to follow.
I'm going to interrupt here, and I've stopped your clock. This has come up before repeatedly. If there's issues with the interpreters, they will advise the clerk, and the clerk and I will intervene. Until then, we'll get back, but we appreciate if you could respond to the question. Thank you.
So, should I? So, as I mentioned, it's about 15%.
An amount in dollars, please.
Well, it depends on departments because we don't control all contracts, but each department has had the objective overall of decreasing reliance on external consultants by about 15%.
So in other words, you don't know the number. We know that the government has blown past its deficit targets. How much of that is due to the increase in outsourcing?
Well, that's a great point that you're making, because we are seeing in Canada a fall in inflation, a fall in interest rates, just announced just a few days ago, the fifth in a row, which is the fastest fall in interest rates seen across all comparable developed economies. We're also seeing an increase in employment.
Minister, I know we've had this kind of an exchange in previous committees, and I can appreciate that you really don't want to answer the questions that we're asking here today. But you're really doing us as parliamentarians and Canadians a disservice when you ignore the questions that we're asking on behalf of Canadians. And so I would simply put to you, your government is blowing past its deficit targets. How much of that is due to an increase in outsourcing?
Well, what I'm trying to do, respectfully, is to support the initial part of your question, which started by saying that everything is broken in Canada, which is inaccurate and I think insulting to most Canadians because, as I said, we are doing really, really good compared to most other countries in the world. Yes, we've had challenges post-pandemic.
In other words, you would say that Canadians have never had it so good. Is that what you're saying?
Canadians don't want to hear that everything is broken, as some people indeed are saying in the House of Commons and elsewhere. That would be inaccurate. And again, it would be insulting to most Canadians to pretend that everything is broken.
So let's get back to what the procurement ombudsman said. Do you agree with the procurement ombudsman when he talks about the procurement system being broken?
I can turn to official, but I would be surprised if the procurement ombudsman had said, like you did, that everything is broken in Canada.
He said, and I quoted it for you, sir, that the Canadian system is kind of near the bottom tier, and he said that the contract system is broken.
I have to interrupt. That is our time. We'll go to Mr. Kusmirchuk, perhaps.